welcome back to my channel. We are back for some more Pokemon Creepypastas, so I apologize that I have to record on my phone again, but of course the stupid fucking screen recording website, like, stopped working because I still don't have internet, and I don't want to drive to my dad's just to use his internet to bring it back up, so we're just gonna use my phone. And it's also easier because it's easier to edit videos because the videos are already on my phone, so I don't have to plug in my phone to my computer and put the videos on my phone and all that good shit. So, yes, apologies for the time being, but yeah, today we are reading Battery Ditto. Let's get right into it. I don't think this is very long, so I'll try not to read super fast. Have you ever wondered why in Generation 2, Gold, Silver, and Crystal, that there's only one place in the whole Johto and Kanto that you can breed Pokemon? I can tell you why, but I warn you, you may not like what you hear, especially if you feel particularly attuned to the suffering animals in our old world. With that out of the way, I shall begin. A lot of emphasis was put on Team Rocket's little science experiment at the Lake of Rage, and as soon that their takeover on the radio tower. All the while they had already set up a much larger but more secretive operation. You see, the daycare man and his wife were not the first to discover that Pokemon laid eggs. This was the first discovery of the lowly rocket grunt who was in charge of looking after the captured Ditto. The rock grunt Hiroshi thought he had the easiest job in the whole organization. Not once had he run into that 11-year-old child who had single-handedly defeated Team Rocket not even a year ago, and he was now respected enough to have his plans follow through, so he never messed up so badly that he'd have to come face-to-face with Giovanni and explain himself. Hiroshi really did have it easy. All he wanted to do was make sure the Pokemon were not too loud, but they were generally fed, and on the rare occasion that they soiled themselves, he had to wipe it up with a rag. The Ditto were kept in a squalor. Hiroshi was regularly required to electrocute them if they were not silent. However, most nights they remained silent, with only a sad humming song that resonated down with the filthy hallway. Each cage, no more than 20 centimeters by 20 centimeters, an electrified mesh wire held two Ditto. The transformation pits also held the two Ditto, but were 10 feet by 10 feet wide to accommodate for the shape-shifting to larger Pokemon, all controlled by electrical frequencies as to what Pokemon they became. They all sang, one after another, and as the song spread out outwards, Hiroshi felt his eyes begin to flutter. He felt compassion for the beasts, cramped in their cage or in the transformation pits. Besides, the song wasn't unpleasant to listen to, but falling asleep on guard duty was a for sure fire way for all the things to go wrong. To help keep himself awake, he reached for a Pokeball, and when the energy was released from the Pokeball, an Arcanine padded forward towards its master. If you smell anything out of place, or if they try to escape, use whatever force you think is necessary. The Arcanine nodded its large head and padded down to sit next to its master. And with that, Hiroshi nodded his head and fell asleep instantly. Almost instantly fell asleep, and the song continued to resonate in his dream. He felt he had not slept of all 10 minutes before he was woken up by a terrible squealing and panting. His eyes bolted open, and in a panic, he scanned the battery cages and the transformation pits. The song had died, and in its place was a horrible screeching noise, as if all the Ditto began to panic at once. Hiroshi only had a split second to run to the lever and flip it down before several sparking bolts seared through the wires, causing a high squeal from the confined Ditto before they knew to be silent once more. But still the whimpering and hushed language continued between them as they shuddered in their cages. The panting continued. Hiroshi stepped slowly along the aisle, looking inside every single cage. The Ditto stared back at them with an expression of pure fear as they shook from cold and hunger. It was the first transformation pit that he found his Arcanine panting. Under him was one of the transformed Ditto, in a shape of that Hiroshi did not recognize. It was a dog shape, but was black with white horns from its head and a long whipping tail. The Ditto dog panted helplessly under the Arcanine. The searing pain of a forced transformation in unfamiliar shape confused and distressed it. Arcanine gave a long, loud yelp before dismounting the Ditto dog and padded back towards Hiroshi, jumping the fence with ease. Hiroshi himself was still in shock as he watched the Pokemon shape in front of him. He had never seen anything like it before. The Ditto shape looked sickly. Many of its bones that would have been internal showed outside the dog-like body, and it panted again before collapsing. Hiroki shook his head and ushered his Pokemon away. Such a strange things were not uncommon to see with the transformation pit's Ditto. Sometimes, with a different currents, the Ditto changed shape into structures that they've never seen before. Excited by the new concept of the concept of new Pokemon, Team Rocket had tried desperately to get the Ditto to stabilize into their new forms to no avail. What disturbed Hiroshi, however, was in the way his Arcanine had simply mounted the poor creature. In a week that followed, Hiroshi had taken care not to release any of his Pokemon from the balls while he was on Ditto duty. He paid extra attention to the dark dog Ditto, who laid sprawled on the floor of the pit, tongue lolling from its mouth and its breathing extremely labored. Lack of food, water, and cleanliness made it look even worse than it had already. Hiroshi smirked a little. "You've got the look of a doom town." The dog Ditto looked up to him and shakily stood on all its four legs. What happened next astounded and scared Hiroshi for the rest of his days. The Ditto dog scrunched up his face and howled in pain, causing the cage Ditto to again scream with terror. Hiroshi ran to get one of the Poke Doctors, thinking the Ditto was dying, and now that would be an offense to face Giovanni with. When they both returned, the Ditto dog was still standing and howling inhumanely, a high-pitched squeal as its innards burst from its backside and fell into a bloody heap behind it. A large solid mass along the awful debris. The doctor jumped into the pen immediately, but the Ditto dog had already begun to dissolve. First into a pinkish gelatinous gloop, and then began to shrink until it was nothing but liquid. The Ditto had expired, but it was still left on the dirt pit where the awful and large mass. The doctor sifted through the offal and picked up the mass. To the surprise, it was steady in his hands and held it up to Hiroshi. It was an egg. The egg was monitored for days on end by the scientists in Hiroshi, who took a personal interest in his big discovery, until all at once the news spread in the department that the egg was hatching. There was a big commotion at the department as people crowded around the small table. The egg began to shake and crack, little splinters coming off in pieces before a dark head emerged. It was disgusting, and it was gruesome, and it looked evil. It was a puppy. Black as night, with its skull seemingly to be visible on the outside and its ribs protruding from its back. It was perfect. Hiroshi stepped forward, parting the crowd, and his mind swimming with opportunities. If this Pokemon lived, thrived, and reproduced, and he would have successfully achieved by accident what the scientists had been trying to do since the Dittos were captured. He created a new Pokemon. Its mother, Ditto, was a doomed hound, Houndoom. This is our Houndour. The scientists nodded silently in agreement, as all astonished by the offense which happened before them. From that moment onwards, Hiroshi was presented before Giovanni with the Houndour and was promptly put in charge of the Ditto evolution project. For the next 2 years, Hiroshi studied the Ditto in the pits, forcing them into strange and grotesque shapes with the aid of the electrical current, and then forcing them to breed with the male gender of the similar-looking Pokemon. He managed to do this successfully with at least 100 different variations of the Ditto, and all of them managed to give birth to eggs. Some eggs never hatched, some eggs hatched in Pokemon, and the Pokemon died within a few days, and some hatched but the offsprings were infertile or never evolved. But where there are many where the eggs that hatched just like Houndour managed to successfully evolve and rebreed. After this was successful, they even tried it with Pokemon they already knew. Pikachu Dittos had strange Minichu babies. Magmar Dittos even had stranger Minimar babies. They discovered the discovery was outstanding, but tragic as none of these offsprings lived very long after the mother Ditto had expired, which led to the development of the better medical care, and gradually the Ditto could sustain more than one offspring in their lifespan. But the babies still did not thrive. This continued for many years until the word of mouth began to travel, with wealthy Pokemon collectors sporting brand new types of Pokemon. The Ditto, their eggs, and their babies were all mysteriously released one night, and Hiroshi was found dead in the labs, his body charred beyond recognition through visual means alone. Whether this was a revolt from the tortured Ditto who just so happened to escape, or whether the Pokemon activists managed to infiltrate and release the Pokemon themselves is unknown. It was several years afterwards, when many of these new species had begun to thrive in the regions of Johto and Kanto, that the old couple living just outside Goldenrog came home to a rather shocking discovery. A large, soft egg nestled between two Pokemon they were looking after. Rocket continued the project, however, with whatever Ditto they could find. Still to this day, they were trying to manipulate them, and with a bigger gene pool than ever before. There is no end to the mutations they can force on those poor battery Dittos. That's fucking depressing. I never realized how, like, I guess I never realized how gruesome, like, actually breeding Dittos with other Pokemon and them transforming into said Pokemon could be. I guess I, like, don't really think about, like, how painful that would be for a Ditto. Like, I know it's just a blob, but I feel like transforming into whatever Pokemon, it's got a lot of shape shifting to do, which I feel like would not be pleasant or painless. Like, you gotta extend your limbs and break shit and, like, regrow shit. It's like if you were a hybrid creature, like if you were like a hybrid cat, you'd have to, like, oh, your skull would crack so ears could be made, or your tailbone would extend out and be bony while hair grew to make a tail, that sort of stuff. So I feel like that would be the same kind of thing for Ditto, but that's really depressing. Anyways, that is the ending for this one. So I hope you all enjoyed. If you're new to my channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button, give me a thumbs up, hit the bell so you're notified of new videos, which is every Wednesday. I love you guys, and I'll see you guys later. Bye bye.